Welcome to part 2 of my Weapons Discuss 2.0 video. So this is how I'm going to do this. I will do a very small amount of gameplay of each of the top tier weapons, show you why they outshine all other weapons, and I will show you guys my mod loadout of each weapon, but I won't discuss it just because I've done that before. But one quick thing to note is if you do have a weapon with a catalyst and 6 polarities and you have, it's a decent loadout, any kind of elemental combination would do superb against any race unless you are at something like a 40-minute plus survival or 40 wave plus defense, because with these kind of loadouts the damage is so high that you won't even notice much difference between the elemental combinations. Okay, so with primary weapons I would say there are 4 categories. And with the first category, I would call them the sort of scanner type weapons. So that's the Amprex, the Phage, and the Synapse. And what I mean by that is basically you hold down the trigger and you just swipe the room, and everything it touches, it dies. So I will begin with some Amprex show. Alright guys, so I'm in a T2 exterminate here, just showing off the Amprex. So basically this is what I'm talking about. You do a scanning and then everything it touches pretty much just dies. Now, Amprex is top tier in, I would say, all exterminate type missions, just because one of Amprex's disadvantage is its ammo efficiency, and in exterminate type, before you run out of ammo, the mission should end already with a optimized build. Now, the reason Amprex is so good is it makes Warframe, a very easy game that much easier in that you don't have to aim. You do the scanning, and he touches one enemy, and he keeps on traveling to all other enemies. Everything in the room pretty much just dies within seconds. This is also very evident in survival, where you get a lot of cluster. But unless you're planning to exit at 5 minutes, I wouldn't recommend this with him, because unless you got some ammo restore packs or some necros, you are just gonna run out of ammo in 5 minutes. Okay, let's talk about the Phage next. So out of all the scanner type weapons, I would say this is probably my favorite. Now the Phage is definitely my favorite scanner type weapon, just because of its extreme ammo efficiency. Now the way to use this weapon is, once you have the beam focused, don't release the trigger unless you're doing some kind of defense mission or waiting on an elevator, because the time required to refocus the beam is just too inefficient and too long. And to really use this weapon at its max potential, you really want the beam to focus all the time. Now I know some people pretty comment on how I don't have the best mod loadout for the Corpus faction, but as I mentioned before, with 5 polarities and a catalyst, this weapon, or any of my top tier weapons, is so strong that any kind of elemental combination is really not a big deal. And with sabotage weapons specifically, you can see how the Phage, with a bit of spread, is so efficient at killing the sabotage targets. And the final sketch of the scanner weapon, the Synapse. Now, I really feel with the Amprex and with the Phage out, the Synapse is really sort of falling out of favor as far as application goes, because even though it's more ammo efficient than the Amprex, and you can use rifle mods versus shotgun mods, like the Phage, it still isn't, ammo efficient enough to be able to deal with your long survivals. But having said that, with that slightly better ammo efficiency, with that better reload time, and with that, instant heat scan type sort of firing mechanism, and allowing you to do, scanner type action, is still definitely one of the strongest weapons out there. Next, what I'm going to talk about is the Soma. For those of you that have seen my previous videos, you would know I would consider Soma to be the most all-purpose weapon in the game, most versatile weapon in the game, just because of its extreme high damage, pinpoint accuracy without heavy caliber, and still decent accuracy even with heavy caliber.
found the target. Capture them quickly before they escape.
Now let's talk about the Boulder Prime. For me, the Boulder Prime is definitely the most fun weapon to use, the most satisfying weapon to use. It looks great, it sounds great, and it is a beast. It does definitely a lot of damage, very good accuracy. Only issue with it is it does have that slight traveling time, but in most purpose gameplay, it doesn't actually matter that much. Now for those of you that have seen my first weapons discussed video, so not part 1, but the one I did a couple months back, you probably remember I would consider the Soma, the Boulder Prime, and the Electron Prime to be the sort of weapon triangle, where for the shortest missions use the Soma, the mid duration missions use the Boulder Prime, and the slightly longer type missions use the Electron Prime out of these 3. So if you want to use the sort of standard rifles, that's when to use each of these 3 weapons. And finally, the Electron Prime. Now, I'll be honest, out of the 3, Soma, Boulder Prime, and Electron Prime is probably the weapon I use the least, just because, like I was saying before, it's meant for long duration weapons, but for long duration weapons, you got so many better weapons to use, noticeably the Penta for its AoE, as well as high damage output, and also the Phage, despite it being a shotgun, not being able to use rifle mods, and not having that insane damage that the Penta have in groups of enemies, it's just much more sort of satisfying to use than something like Electron Prime. And even the Boulder Prime, if you got a decent Necros or some ammo packs, I would even select the Boulder Prime over the Electron Prime for long missions, despite it having better, despite Electron Prime having better ammo efficiency, just because the Boulder Prime is more satisfying to use.
Target located. Bring them in.
So the last 3 missions I ran were all T2 captures, which I felt to be quite representative of normal type of missions that beginner or mid-level players would normally run. Now I'm in Satura, Pluto, the Dark Sector defense, and using what I would consider to be one of the best in-game weapons in the game, the Penta. So pre the Blessing nerf, Penta was definitely the go-to weapon for all your long T3 defense, T3 survivals. Now it's still decent, but having said that, because you don't have Blessing anymore, you definitely risk killing yourself, and when you are at a 80-minute plus T3 survival, killing yourself may mean game ending. But having said that, there's no danger to yourself in these kind of defense missions, and it's where this weapon is built to be used at. Okay, so now let's talk about the 2 bows, the Dread and the Paris Prime. So the Dread is up first. Now you will notice with all the other rifles you need 6 polarities because of heavy caliber. With bows you just need 5 polarities. You don't need heavy caliber on bows for 2 reasons. 1, you actually need that accuracy, and for 2, bows actually do extremely high single target damage anyway, and a speed trigger for that charge attack is much better than having a heavy caliber on there. Now, the bows, because they have extremely high damage against single targets, but very, shall we say, low crowd control ability, and just because of the way that Warframe, the game is, I would say the bows probably don't really have much utility, and they probably, as far as my gameplay goes, don't get used that much. But having said that, they do have decent damage against single targets, and for that, you can't take those numbers away from them, and they would definitely still be considered to be top tier weapons. Now, so when would you want to use these type of weapons? I suppose when you're at your 40-minute plus T3 survival against those heavy gunner headshots, they're definitely useful. Against boss fights, they may have some applications, especially for it, who pretty much is just a meat bucket. But the problem with your long T3 survival is you'll actually benefit a lot more using something like, I suppose, your Phage or your Penta early on, just because they can kill, mass enemies so much faster. And with a long T3 survival, you actually do need that for the oxygen conservation. And the last weapon primary weapon we'll talk about is the Paris Prime. Now, one thing I do want to mention about these bow weapons is when you are low level, so say below rank 10, it's definitely worth putting Thunderbolt on. But once you are at high enough level, Thunderbolt really is just a waste of a slot.
There is the assassination target. You know what to do.